Luuk Herssen is almost here, and if you do not have Lenny, you might be asking the same question a lot of players are thinking about right now. Can Phoebe realistically function as an alternative sub-DPS option for Luuk? That is exactly what we are breaking down today.
Yo! Welcome back to the channel! Kamusta sa inyong lahat? And Happy Lunar New Year!
When Phoebe first launched, she had a very clear identity. She was the queen of spectro-frazzle damage. She was the centerpiece, the one actually driving the damage numbers, the one people built entire teams around. Then Zani entered the conversation. Suddenly Phoebe was no longer the main event. She became the setup, the enabler, the person holding the flashlight while someone else does the cool stuff. Sadly, this pairing proved underwhelming for many, and spectro-frazzle just fizzled out. Now, with her expected rerun sitting somewhere on the horizon, a lot of players are looking at their rosters and asking a very specific question. Can Luuk Herssen actually make Phoebe feel good to play again? But before we jump into the heavy stuff,
if you want a smarter way to stretch your Lunites and Asterites without feeling like your wallet just lost a boss fight, check out my U7 buy link in the description and pinned comments and use my code VeeDizzy. They're the only top-up site that can deliver your purchase directly using only your UID and server through what they call trusted top-up. No passwords required, no manual do-it-yourself top-ups, just a smooth, worry-free process delivered straight to your account. They handle the top-up securely while you stay in control of your account. U7 Buy has been operating since 2003, and they've expanded into the gacha space with some of the most competitive top-up pricing available for Wuthering Waves, offering savings of up to 26% compared to in-game prices. They currently hold a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot, and most top-ups are completed in under 5 minutes, which means less waiting and more time actually playing. If you want cheaper top-ups while keeping your account safe, use my link in the description and pinned comments, or use my code VeeDizzy on U7 Buy. It's a practical way to save on top-ups while supporting the channel. Spend responsibly, or don't, that part is on you. Now, back to the topic.
At first glance, the answer honestly looks like no, and I know that sounds harsh, but let's be real. Luuk's kit revolves heavily around scaling basic attack damage and maintaining consistent on-field pressure. He wants someone who can directly boost that lane of damage. Phoebe, meanwhile, was built to lean into spectro-frazzle amplification and spectral resistance reduction. Those are not useless effects, but they are not tailor-made for Luuk either. Phoebe's outro deals a very large chunk of spectral damage based on her attack. On top of that, her enhanced states add more multiplier scaling, resistance shred, and a massive boost to frazzle damage output. On paper, that sounds incredible. In practice, if Luuk is not primarily relying on frazzle damage as his main source, then a large chunk of that value becomes more situational than explosive. So yes, if you are looking for perfect textbook synergy, this is not it. This is not that clean, elegant, devs clearly planned this combo situation. This is more like finding out two coworkers from different departments can technically help each other, but only if both of them are willing to stay late and learn new workflows. But here is where things get interesting. Because while Phoebe does not directly supercharge basic attacks, she can still function as a hybrid support damage dealer if you build around that idea instead of forcing her into her original main DPS identity. This is where Moonlit Clouds starts to matter a lot. Running the full set means that when Phoebe uses her outro, she hands over a sizable attack buff to whoever takes the field next. Suddenly, she's not just frazzle-focused anymore. She's quietly feeding raw attack stats into Luuk's damage profile. It's not the most insane buff in the game, but it is consistent and it lines up naturally with swap rotations. Then you add Impermanence Heron into the equation. Once Phoebe triggers the Echo attack and rotates out, you're stacking another layer of damage increase for a short window. Again, not game-breaking on its own, but when you stack Moonlit Cloud's attack boost, Heron damage bonus, and Phoebe's own respectable personal damage, you start to see something that looks less like cope and more like a functional rotation. The real challenge here is not damage, it's energy. Phoebe has always been a little bit needy when it comes to energy regeneration. If she cannot cycle her rotation cleanly, everything starts to feel slow and clunky. And in a team where the goal is to get back to Luuk as fast as possible, slow is the enemy. That's why hitting around the 130% energy regeneration mark is honestly not optional if you're serious about running this duo. Without that, you risk Phoebe overstaying on field, which immediately tanks overall team DPS because Luuk is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Now, let's talk about the third slot, because this is where you can actually stabilize the whole team concept. If you run Shorekeeper, you gain access to strong offensive stat boosts, including crit scaling, assuming you hit the activation conditions. That's huge for Luuk, because crit scaling is one of the most reliable ways to multiply consistent basic attack damage. On top of that, Shorekeeper adds survivability and general team stability, which is never bad. If you go Verena instead, you are leaning more into consistent buff uptime and safer gameplay. Verena tends to smooth out rotations and keep your team healthy while still feeding offensive stats into your main carry. It is less flashy, but sometimes less flashy is exactly what makes a team feel comfortable in real combat scenarios. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, if you have Leany, that is probably still the cleaner, high synergy option for Luuk. Leany simply lines up more directly with what Luuk wants to do. That is not an insult to Phoebe, that is just kit design reality. But not everyone has Leany, and honestly, gotcha reality means most people are working with what they have, not with what tier lists tell them they should have. In that context, Phoebe becomes a very interesting alternative. She brings real damage, real buffs, and enough utility to justify a slot if you build her with that supporting role in mind, instead of forcing her to be the star of the show. And let's be honest, part of the fun of games like this is making unconventional teams work. Anyone can copy-paste a meta comp, there is zero personality in that. There is zero discovery. Sometimes the most satisfying clears come from teams that technically should not work, but do anyway because you built them correctly and actually understand how your characters function. Do I think Luuk and Phoebe will redefine the meta? Probably not. Do I think they're going to be the new benchmark for damage? Also probably not. But do I think this team can absolutely function in real combat if built properly? Yes. And honestly, that might be enough for a lot of players who just want to use characters they actually like. Personally, I am very interested in testing this when Luuk arrives, because if this combination ends up feeling smooth in real gameplay, it could quietly become one of those sleeper teams people underestimate for months before suddenly realizing it is actually pretty solid. And if nothing else, if this pairing gives Phoebe a second life outside of her Zani partnership, that alone is already a win for players who invested into her early and never really wanted to bench her. So the real question is not whether this is the most optimal team in existence. The real question is whether you are willing to experiment and build around synergy that is not immediately obvious. Because sometimes the difference between a dead character and a viable character is just one teammate that was never supposed to work, but somehow does. And honestly, those are usually the most fun teams to play anyway. As always, if this video resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe. Ring that bell for massive gotcha luck and maybe a sandwich. Thank you so much for watching, maraming salamat po, and I will see you in my next video drop. Goodbye.